soak it in water. When it is finally time to relax, I will say up until this session now that I'm talking to you, a lot has been going on. So I'm still in the process of coming down because of the apprehension and get into areas that I'm not fully clear on and seeking more and more knowledge and keeping my spirit man open to hear, you know, from some people would say source, creator. I'm just going to say from, you know, God. This is Christian based, my Lord and Savior. So, and prayer, definitely prayer. So those are the things that calm me down.
How do you get grounded?
That's a part of grounding, as a matter of fact. But also, since I've been here in St. Louis, I got a bike. I've always loved bikes.
Yes, you have.
I remember before I left, living here, because we lived here, you know, what Renee didn't say before, we were here before one time in the 90s. That's how I ended up working for Orkin out here in Missouri a number of years ago in the 90s. But before I left, I was a bike rider then in Chicago, and that was the first bike I ever bought. And there was someone we met through our church back then, and I wanted to keep him motivated because he was newly come. So I took that bike over to his house, and I was letting him know how much I was going to miss him, and I gave him that bike because I wanted, you know, someone else to be blessed with it. But since I've been here, this is a part of the grounding here. So I'm not riding it that often. It's so hot out here, so I'm still adjusting, you know, to the heat and riding. But I use that to help ground as well.
What books do you like?
Oh, I don't go far with books. I do a lot of my reading online. A lot of my reading online. If I have a thought and I want to do search, that's the way I do it. But I will tell you, funny you should ask about books. I am so fond of and so jealous of people who have libraries in their houses. Those of you listening, I don't know what your ages are, but when we grew up, this lady and myself, there used to be encyclopedia salesmen going from house to house, and, you know, depending on your station and standing economically, maybe you weren't able to buy a complete set of Britannicas, for example. That's all I say about that. But they would leave. They would leave a letter. You was hoping it was a good letter. So I would take the time and read through, you know, all the pages of that. And I'm also fond of going through, back in the day, they used to have the yellow pages, the big, thick one. I love the yellow, just going, you know, I wasn't necessarily looking for anything, but I found an escape just going through the pages of the yellow pages. I don't know if they still exist anymore. I know they had reduced them down to almost nothing, but back in the day they were so large. So those, and then of course, you know, we grew up around the 66 books found in one book called the Bible. So I found that as a place of escape. But then there are peripheral readings that every now and then I delve into. I remember back in the day reading a couple of Jackie Collins books, a couple of your books I kept private. I know she probably don't even know this because, you know, what do they call those novels? But talk about me later. But books I would think that ladies would only indulge in, but when she was away, I would, you know, sneak one and, you know, read through it. Okay. So those type of books. But lately it's just a lot of online information.
Do you have a favorite author? Anyone in particular, whether natural, spiritual, whatever you call it?
None that I can call at the moment.
Okay. And you all don't know, but this man is a wealth of information. Even though he probably doesn't consider himself to be, he knows a lot more than you think you do. Don't. But anyway, yeah. Household chores. anyone you just
What about the household chores?
anyone you just really, really, because I know you, and if it needs to be done, just because it needs to be done, you're gonna do it. But
And here's the thing with that, everybody that's listening. The thing with that, it's so simple. I mean, if you're walking by, you see a couple of items on the floor that don't belong. This is one of those things that don't belong. Anybody remember that? Just pick it up and put it where it belongs. And
not like the
I grew up around, Now my mom,
Woo.
who's now gone,
Uh-huh.
she didn't allow us to wash a piece at a time. If you were going to be in the kitchen washing anything, you needed to wash
Everything. Yes.
When it comes to clothes in the machine, I don't care if it weren't your clothes in the machine. If you needed to wash, you took those clothes out of the machine and put them in the dryer. You are now responsible for taking them out of the dryer. And listen, for anyone young, don't want to hear this, but this is the way we were brought up. Those clothes weren't allowed to be laid on the dryer. We had to fold the clothes up that were not ours. So
yes.
remember the words, the acronym CTS. So you considered the source of where the clothes were, and you decided at that time whether or not I think I'll make it another week without washing, because it was a commitment. But as far as chores, I'm okay with it, But if there's chores to be done, this is the mindset that I have. What are we waiting for? Why let time slip away and just, you almost get depressed over something you got to do? It has to be done. It's a part of everyday life. Go do it, and now you can watch TV. Go do it, now you can play your video games. Go do it, now you can go out. Just get it out of the way. That's my take on chores. Whatever it is, mopping the floor, it doesn't matter. There's certain things that have to be done on a daily or regular basis. Let's do it, get it over with, and move on with life.
Yep. Take out the wife's dog.
Oh, yeah. She said it, everybody. I'm not a dog person, but
He tolerates my dogs. He knew that in my life growing up there was always a dog, so he just kind of figured there would be a dog in my house always, and there has been since we've been married.
and there's no snatching, there's no choking, there's no pulling the dog because I don't want to do it. No. I
Exactly.
know that if I want things to flow as they should, including favor, I've got to do it as though it's mine. So just a little hint. What else you got? What else you got? Let's go. Let's do it. Wait a minute. I need some more inspiration. Okay, let's
Wow. Now, I know I've known you for many, many, many years, a few decades, but
go. Who's counting?
if someone meets you today, how would they describe you?
I talked about earlier, one of the apprehensions versus fear that I would have is not being open with people like I'd like to be. I think when people see me, they would probably say how quiet I am, how withdrawn, very few words. But when it comes to work or things to be done, I think most would say he goes to get the thing, whatever needs to be done, and then he gets out of Dodge. You look up and he's gone.
Yeah.
So I guess I am more accustomed to quiet, solace, a lot of alone time. Not on purpose. I guess for me it's kind of a safety zone, I guess. So, in short, probably disconnected, not in a negative way, but a bit detached, they would probably say.
Okay, so someone who has known you, and I'm thinking of a person in particular,
Uh-oh.
someone who has known you for many, many years. How would he describe you?
That's the hint. He.
That's the hint.
So outside of the household, the only person I can think of is Chris. I won't
There
say
you-
his last name,
There you are.
but I call him C. He calls me C as well. But yeah, we grew up.
Yes.
We've known each other over 40 some odd years. So he was a peak squeak when we met. Then one day I saw him and he was towering over me. But what would he say?
Mm-hmm.
He probably smiled and never say it all. Probably grin from ear to ear. At least that would be my hope. Because women would probably say different. And again, those that are listening talk about me later. But usually guys, if they haven't seen, again, he's in Chicago, I'm here. He's a Chicago fireman, as a matter of fact. When I spoke about doing, some home remodels and all of that, I started with him. When I started with Chris, he had me just gutting places for him. He says, okay, I need this down, this down, this down. That's how I started with him, coming in and I would clean the space. You see this table right here. I don't know if the camera can see that, but
No.
it's when he wanted something done, I went in to do it. If walls needed to be come down, I took the walls down, and then one thing led to the other. I tell you one fact about that. First of all, he would probably say the same things as you're saying, but he knows me so well now. But in working with him, one day he had me. I'm just reflecting. I don't want to take up you guys' time, but after working with him so long, I would go buy drywall for him, and whatever supplies, including lunch. That's how it all started. Then one day, he said, "I need you to cut some drywall," so I did that for him. Then another day was the day that I had never did this before, but we were doing a basement, and he wanted all the receptacles changed out. They were about maybe 1.5 feet off the floor, and I said, "Okay." He says, "Here are all the new ones over there." So I looked at him, and I was like, "So you gonna cut the power off?" He said, "For what?" And I was like, he says, "No." He says, "I want you to be able to do it." Like, Chris. So I went around and changed, the number of outlets that needed to be changed. He said, "Because all it's going to do is, what's that? What?"
Wait.
What a way to learn, right? I'm just telling you, So from that to, when we got our house, Renee, T, I was able to put a suspended ceiling in our house. I was able to close out, washer and dryer. I put a wall up and, extra bedrooms in the basement,
Yeah.
So, he taught me how to fish. How about that? Like I said, one of the things, that's the direction I'm going to, is there's certain people and certain places and things that, we need to say thank you and not forget about it. But like I said, I'll talk about that later.
What about a coworker?
Coworker. Oh, there's several. But the look on your face and the smile on your face, and you haven't been a part of NFA at one time or another.
Yes, I have. Yes.
That's another thing she hasn't mentioned. There's a number of jobs we worked together on in our time over these 38 years. But anyway, she's probably talking about another C person and another S person, and that's all I'll say. They know me very well. There are times we get into discussion in the mailroom. The mailroom spelled M-A-L-E, not the other. And we would get in discussion, and it's nothing for them to see me fall on the floor in laughter. I mean, we just have that type of
His
relationship.
laughter, may I tell you, is a whole other